Welcome to the Underdog Chronicles, a podcast focused on telling the story of the beginner, the underdog. In today's episode, we will be meeting the founder of ToYou Tutoring and final year computer engineering student, Johann Strydom, who will take us on a journey sharing the insights and lessons that he's learned from almost failing grade 10 to now owning a tutoring company called ToYou Tutoring. And insights coming your way. Welcome, Johann. It's honestly a true privilege to have you on our show today. Just before we get into the nitty gritty, I do have a bit of a surprise question to ask you.
I'm excited. Thanks for having me here, Mariam.
Thank you. It's a great honor to have you here. I think from the time that I looked up, I think the time we connected on LinkedIn, I was like, this guy seems pretty interesting. I wanna hear his story. So thank you again for being here. And so I'm gonna ask you the question that I didn't prepare you for. So I hope you're ready.
I'm ready.
So I want you to share a funny or unusual talent that not many people know about you.
Okay. Okay. A funny or unusual talent. Here, okay. The thing is, it's difficult. I'll need to show you, but what it is so okay. The idea of throwing food into the air and catching it with your mouth, I
Yeah,
am strangely good. Grapes, especially. I think my record is 13 in a row, which I
13.
think 13. And I think personally, if it was an Olympic sport, I'm up there. There's a talent here that is waiting to be discovered by someone who might think that it's important. But it is definitely that would be my hidden talent. If I had to choose one or a strange talent, it's that. It's catching grapes with my mouth. The thing is, it doesn't even translate that well over to other foods. Maybe it's because of the aerodynamics, who knows? But when it comes to grapes, I can go 13 in a row. That is the record. I think the average is about 7. Still, that is my hidden talent.
Wow. I would not have guessed that. I would not have guessed
I don't
that
think anyone would.
13 grapes. That is extraordinary. I think you should sign up for the Guinness Book of Records because that's quite something. I mean, I haven't met someone that can say I can toss and catch 13 grapes. Not
Yeah,
many people
yeah.
can say that. So I really think you should send them an email and be like, "Hey,
Yeah, send them an email. Yeah, no, I'll look into it. I don't want to saturate the competition or have other people feel down about their
uh,
great catching capabilities. So 13 is just such a big number. I prefer to wait for the competition to catch up,
and
and
I
then
get
we
you.
can get into it.
I
Mhm.
definitely get you, but I still think maybe in a few years after the competition has caught up, you should definitely like go and be like, "Hey, yo, Guinness, you me record now."
Now, immediately, let's just get it done quick.
Yeah, in a minute, just be
No,
like,
no, I agree. I agree. I think also though I have another. I'm going
"You
to
have
double down on
another."
your question. I've got two.
Mm-hmm.
So, not only am I possibly the best grape catching person that has ever walked this earth, but I am also currently the 40th quickest lap time on Mario Kart Wii in Delfino Square in
Oh,
Africa.
oh
I
wow,
know, I know. Yeah,
wow.
yeah.
I can literally see
No,
you taking a small little bow right now. If you're not doing it,
yes,
please do it.
yes. No, my proudest accomplishment. Many of my years was spent attempting to achieve it, and 40th place. It's not nothing. It's something. It's big in the community. I assure you.
No, I believe you. I'm not very well versed when it comes to the video game, but I believe you. I mean, in Africa, that's pretty cool. That's pretty big. That's pretty big.
But yeah, those are probably my two strange talents.
That's very, very, very cool. Speaking of talents, um, I remember when looking at your LinkedIn profile, you said you're computer engineering, and then in a few lines, you said, I'm also really good at public speaking. And I mean, you don't really come across people who have that balance between like high technical and academic like prowess and like a natural ability to connect with people. So would you say that these two sides of your skill sets always came naturally to you, or did you like develop one side?
They definitely did not come naturally. Possibly the public speaking came naturally. I don't recall ever having to teach myself that at all. I've just never been all that nervous with public speaking. But technical capabilities, they do not come naturally whatsoever.
Yeah.
Those are brute force. Those have been brute forced into me by mostly myself, and academics especially. I come from a position where in grade 10 I almost failed grade 10,
Oh wow.
and then
Okay.
grade 11 we just swapped that right around through absolutely forcing myself to give it my best and give it my best shot. So no, they don't come naturally. Academics and technical capabilities are well taught when it comes to perseverance and consistency, and those I just was not born with inherently. Trying continuously and accepting failure, that did not come naturally whatsoever. It took quite a bit of time and tears to get those really ingrained into me. So
Oh,
yeah, that's my result now, is that I think I do have quite a diverse portfolio of things that I am at least mediocre at, and most of them are self-taught. Most of them have I've forced down my throat to become good at.
that's incredible though. I mean, like the fact that you had the willpower and also I think the drive, like within yourself at the age of like 16 or 17 to be like,
Mhm.
I do not like how this is going and I am going to change that. And it wasn't any external like person or force that was making you do that, but it was you. It all came from you, which is really extraordinary. Um, yeah, I mean, wow. So you almost failed in grade 10. How did you like, if you could walk me through, how did you like, I don't know, get through that? How did you come on top? Because I mean,
So
that must have really pushed you down.
So inherently, I'd say what that was, and you mentioned something now where you said it's all drive and me, and that to me isn't true. It is others. It really is others. So what turned it all around for me was a person who I had met named Monica, and I had gotten a math tutor. I'd said no, I need help. I do definitely need help, and this tutor was a little bit unorthodox, where in essence she didn't really even help me whatsoever. She just said you need to do this, but what she started off with was just talking to me, and it was a case of this person really wanted to believe in me, and I really did not want to let them down, and not wanting to let them down, because it had been a case of everyone in my life had obviously known the string of events that had occurred, and oh yeah, no, he's like barely passed every single grade. So then it came to this person who I had a clean slate with, and I was embarrassed to an extent, so I wanted to showcase the best of myself and not let this person down and not be all these things that I've been told that I am. And through that, truly, that pushed me to get it done. Yeah.
Oh, so
Mm.
that is really quite beautiful. Is the power of like just the fact that you don't want to let someone else down is what like kind of pushes you to then like do something more that maybe you wouldn't have done
Mm.
if it was just you. So I'm really
Yeah.
glad that we kind of got to dive a bit deeper into that, and we get to tell a little bit about like your story and also the story of your tutor who like as you said you had to like start, who was the one person in your life or one of the few people in your life that you kind of had like a clean slate with, and you were like, okay, I can like she kind of allowed you to like rewrite your story in a way. um
Yeah.
it's Speaking of that, like what made you like what motivated you to go into engineering? Especially because you
So
said that, sorry, sorry for
no, but
interrupting you.
especially because
No, I was
no,
just
go.
saying, especially because you said that the technical and academic like side of you has not been as developed as let's say the side of you that can connect with people and is good at public speaking and so on. Like, what made you go for a degree that's very like that has very focused on the academic and the technical kind of performance?
Okay, so inherently, what had happened is that I feel a lot of due to the fact that I had made such a huge swap from uh, in a grade 8, 9, and 10, because you get asked this question often, oh, what do you want to be when you grow up? And
Hmm.
in a lot of those cases, deep down, my only answer was, well, whatever I can be. That was my answer to that. So I never thought about it all that much. And then here comes grade 11, where all of a sudden we're doing very well. And I now have the opportunity to choose, which I didn't have previously. So I have this opportunity now to choose, and I need to choose something. And if my hidden talent didn't give it away in high school, I was really into video games, extremely. And what had happened was we had a computer here at my parents' house, and it was awful. It was a terrible machine that like it could run paint. That was what it was made for. Paint and Excel, but only like 3 to 4 sheets. However, I have this inherent passion to play video games. I really want to. Now, what do we then have to do here? We have to find workarounds. So, what I would end up doing to almost pursue my, I'd say at that point, even a video game addiction, was I would have to manipulate my computer so that it would believe that it is running higher hardware than what it is, so that the game would not instantly deny it. And then, as well as on top of that, the thing would break all the time. So then that comes to a case of, okay, now we have to open it. And here comes, this 15-year-old, and now he has to open the thing and try and figure out, okay, how are we going to fix this? Yeah, what are we going to do? And
Yeah.
that sort of dealt me into the world of, in essence, computer engineering, because I wanted to play video games so bad, and I didn't actually have the hardware to do it. So I needed to find little workarounds. And when it now came to this brochure of degrees, which I can choose, there was only one that jumped out at me as something that I'm actually somewhat capable at. And well, at least I felt capable amongst others. When comparing myself to others, I thought, okay, well, I'm not really an accountant, and I'm not good at this, and I'm not good at that. But this is me, and I did this on my own. Like, this is a self-taught skill. So surely that's got to be where we're at, and that is how I eventually made my decision to do computer engineering. Um, on top of that, it was also obviously always a slightly economical choice. Or, what degree can I have that I can at least sustain myself with? But then, yeah, passion-wise, it was truly just almost a happy accident, I'd say.
Wow. So you'd say it was like a bit of like serendipity that happened. That,
Yeah,
yeah, it was just like,
definitely.
it was one of those things that just, you're like, you had a problem, you solved it, and kind of the skills that you gained along the way were like, just made it very apparent that you need to, like, computer engineering was for you. Um,
Mm.
would you say that that was what, like, kind of, would you say that was like the sole motivator of going into like computer engineering, or were there also like people involved that maybe inspired you to to like really like um when you were making the decisions about which course you want to apply for, that made you like sure about deciding on it?
Mm. Mm. No, I'd say almost that was entirely the sole factor choosing it, because what I didn't really even want to go to university. It was, and I didn't think about it for all those years. So it really was just a case of, I felt, hey, I can go, I can do this. Let's choose something that I'm somewhat good at and that I somewhat enjoy. So I wouldn't say in that sense there were many people involved with this decision, or motivating it, or role models within the field. I didn't know anything of the field. I just knew what I knew. And from what I knew, I thought, well, I don't know anything else. And then we jumped into that. So yeah, I guess that would be my answer. No, not really.
Hmm. Okay,
Hmm.
that is pretty interesting. And now we've spoken a little bit about like covered like kind of a bit of like some ground with kind of your academic kind of experience, but
Yeah.
what really intrigues me is that you started a business, ToYou Tutoring. Could you maybe share about how you kind of got into that and what kind of ignited the spark that led to that led to it all?
So there's a there's a strange origin story here. So in grade 11 now, all of a sudden I can now do mathematics, out of the blue. And I'm there, okay, I can do mathematics, sure. And I'm talking to a friend of mine. I'm like, but I have no money. I'm broke. Of course, I'm a high school student. And I didn't have a job at that time, and I didn't really have any income. And I was trying to see, what can I do? What can happen? And then my friend and I are talking about this, and he stumbles upon this idea. Well, you're pretty good at this. Can't you do something there to get money? And I thought, okay, yeah, I can probably tutor someone. And then he introduces me to his brother in grade 8 and convinces the mom that, oh no, his brother could use the extra help. And I'm like, okay, yeah. So I then start tutoring this grade 8 student in mathematics. And I found that I loved it. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed seeing someone now understand something for the first time, or just answering their questions in general about different things and discussing different things with them, almost to an extent where I could sense someone's passionate, or I could help them find that passion. And I really enjoyed that. So I'm tutoring this one student, and eventually I come to a point where I'm in first year and I decide, well, I can do more. I can definitely do more than just this one student. So I begin to think of different ways to get more. And eventually I stumble upon Facebook, the home of, all the middle-aged moms and dads and whatnot and guardians for their students. So I stumble there and I begin advertising my tutoring services. And a lot of people are like, oh yeah, no, we should tutor. So I'm doing this, and I begin then to tutor these other extra students and whatnot, but I'm tutoring all of them in person. And it was a bit rough for me to get to everyone and so on. And then COVID happens, right? And we're all online. And it's like, oh, how's this going to work? So once again, I call upon a friend of mine, and we're talking about this. And he's like, oh, yeah, no, for his design course, he's using this Wacom thing, like where I can draw on. It's like a drawing tablet. And I asked him if I can borrow it. Borrow is a strong word here because I still have it after 4 years. So, and, but no, I'm still friends with him. He knows I have it. So I don't feel like it's that bad. Anyways, I have it and I start tutoring online. And now all of a sudden we're doing 6 students a week. And it's like I'm really enjoying the students, not all of them, but hey, let's not, let me not bash them. But I'm tutoring these students and I'm really enjoying it. And this goes on into my second year as well. I'm doing it all by myself and getting more students and whatnot. And eventually I stumble upon this year, start of this year, actually a bit before the start of this year, I meet someone who's then talking about why are we not hiring other people to do this? And then she and I eventually decide to start hiring others to do this and giving other people the opportunity, because upon joining EBIT, what came apparent to me is, sure, there's a lot of different fun things, right? So there's different fun events, and we can get businesses to talk, and there's all this. But in the backdrop, there's always this discussion that would happen at the meetings of, okay, but what about these other students, the students that they don't have the finances to buy food, and they can't do this and they can't do that. And I think to myself, well, they can definitely online tutor the same way that I'm doing it to give them a supplement income. And I start then going around and finding these students and asking them, hey, do you not just want to help? Obviously, you're in a university degree, you have knowledge that you can capitalize off of this. And there are definitely students. And then I started handing over my students to these other people, and they really enjoyed it. And then that's how ToYou Tutoring started. It started by genuinely, obviously, just me doing it on my own, and then eventually coming to this point where I realized, well, it's not just me helping a student to learn, but I can help other university students to just have an income of any kind to be able to sustain themselves. And that's how ToYou Tutoring started. That is our origin story.
It's pretty like that's quite the journey, like from just like doing it as like something that your friend suggested to then moving towards like to it growing after you
Mm.
advertised it on Facebook, to then seeing this to seeing this like gap in the university and wanting to reach out and help and enable other students to actually like to help themselves, and then
Mm.
it just all came together, and now you have like this business that is like thriving, and it's yeah, it's something. It's extraordinary. I'm really, really glad that we got to like hear that origin story. So thank you for not like withholding any of the details because all of the details are necessary.
Mm.
Um, and I can imagine that although running a business is incredibly fulfilling and gratifying, it comes with its like unique sets of challenges. Could you share like maybe some of the challenges that you've encountered and how you've like navigated through them?
So yeah, sure. There are definitely a couple challenges. So number one of the toughest challenges is actually what I mentioned earlier. The reason why we started branching out to have to make it a company with, I think we've got now something like 42 tutors operating as of today. And the one of the biggest problems with that is the inherent idea of why I started branching out was obviously not to help almost my peers at the university and those that can now supplement their income or just have an income to begin with. And what makes this a challenging task for me is just oftentimes a client will show up, or we also work with the study in China program, and a bunch of Chinese students that are coming to South Africa and that need to, get their English to a higher level, in essence. So a lot of the time, we have a handful of these tutors that are professional. They do this for a living and they are fantastic and they have all these accolades and whatnot. And it's difficult then for me to go back and say, oh, yeah, well, I know this person who's in second year studying a degree that has never tutored before in their life, but I really want to give them the opportunity. And now to have that person in essence compete with someone who's been doing this professionally for the last 10 years. They have a teaching degree. There are people here that have PhDs in different, children's psychology, and now how is someone supposed to compete? So it becomes a bit difficult for me on, I guess, a moral basis to do these two things, because there's what's right for me in my heart, where I want to obviously just help someone else, and then there is what makes sense for the students. So you're sort of battling almost two sides. Someone can now for the first time have an income, or a student is getting a better or worse like private education, in essence, that we then have to almost balance and try and fight with. So yeah, I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges. And the way that I've come around to solving that challenge is really just no longer sending out long, lengthy CVs regarding everyone's accolades. And what we do is we just have them demo. Just we'll set up a little practice lesson and then they'll just explain something for 20 minutes. And the student can decide entirely off of that basis first, so that I feel it's fair. Um, but yeah, I think that was probably one of my biggest challenges. And then other challenges are quite common challenges. I think when you think of the business side of things, they become common. Like clients actually just going missing. Just who knows where they went. We were discussing the class is going to happen next Wednesday, and then they've just disappeared off of the face of the earth, and we don't know what happened to them. Or even the same thing with tutors. Tutors do the exact same thing. I recall a story where it was actually it was this year, and we had just gotten into contact with the study in China program, and they wanted an English tutor. And this is actually the second time we had ever done this with them. And what had happened was we had organized someone a week prior. We had this woman, she was keen, she was ready to do it. And we were like, okay, perfect, everything's set up. The morning of, she sent me a WhatsApp and she's like, oh yeah, but I'm moving to New Zealand, so I'm not going to be able to do it anymore.
Oh,
Like,
wow.
okay. So you've the day, and I am still somewhat upset about that, because there's no way that morning you decided that you were moving to New Zealand that morning. No,
Yeah.
you knew this prior. You probably knew this when you accepted the offer. So regardless now, I am upset about this. And then we decide to, okay, we're going to go on to our second tutor. We'll find a backup. So we find a backup, right? And then this backup, she's ready to go. And I'm not even kidding. 5 minutes before she's about to start her lesson, she gives me a message. No, I think my boyfriend will be better at this. He's going to do it. I'm like,
Oh,
okay,
wow.
okay. And then we show up to the meeting. I'm in this practice, like this demo meeting. Our study in China partner, Kelly, she's in the meeting. And now our tutor, who was supposed to be this female that was going to tutor this person, is now just a guy that we don't know. And I just start getting these WhatsApps from Kelly, our study in China partner. And she's like, who is this? What is going on here? Why are you guys lying to us? I'm like, oh, it's falling apart. It's falling apart at the seams. Regardless, though, that lesson went really well. The student, like, I guess it's just luck, but the student loved him, and he is still tutoring her to this day. And
Wow.
all has, I guess, in essence, been forgiven regarding that case. But yeah, I think that is definitely one of the challenges. And also, I've now stopped tutoring myself for students because it just became a bit too much for me to juggle all of it. I felt that I was almost, I was putting it on the back, and I was giving them a really poor experience while trying to teach them these things, which sucks because you develop a relationship with these students. I understand where they're from, and I understand where they want to go and what they want to do. And to an extent, we're almost friends in that regard. And then I have to send them a message saying, "Oh, actually, this is not going to happen anymore. We're going to have to give you over to someone else." And I don't know. It feels like they're my kids at that
Oh,
point. It's 2 years, and you have to now abandon this person just because they can't see it in essence. I'm not saying it's because, oh yeah, they're 16, they're dumb, but they just don't realize that what I am providing is really, it's 30% of what I have. I'm so tired and exhausted when I show up to their class that it's not fair. And it sucks. It sucks to make that decision, but I think they're all in better hands now. And those are probably some of my challenges with this, with the tutoring and just doing education, because education inherently is a difficult field. It's one of those where a lot of people, I feel, sort of ignore it, but it is one of the most important things, especially for me, considering what I had said earlier, where my entire life changed almost, like flipped all around, and I had all these opportunities all of a sudden, and I changed myself introspectively as a person because of someone like this, because someone just came and said, hey, we're going to just give it our best shot right now. So I understand the importance of these people, and it is therefore the quality must be at its absolute highest at all times. Now, if the quality must be at its highest, then it becomes difficult to it clashes with all these other, like my moral feelings about it, and me personally trying to get involved because I like it so much. So yeah, those are, I'd say, my biggest challenges.
wow, that sounds like a handful, like more than just a like handful of challenges that you had to experience like during this journey. Um, and would you like now that you've kind of like taken a step back from it, how like involved are you in it, would you say?
I'm quite involved now just from a management perspective. I found that I still get quite a bit of gratification from just helping out the tutors. How's their mental well-being doing? How is this going? How is that happening? So there's still I'm still happy doing it, and I do enjoy it to a large extent still. However, I'm not physically like I'm not tutoring anyone as of right now, and I'm no longer an educator of any kind. Which, yeah, it does suck a bit, but it's for the best of the student.
I love how like you you were kind of like saying about all the kind of challenges and dilemmas that you had. And
Mm.
and then when you kind of dialed in on this like this last challenge that you talked about actually stepping away from it and not being able to, you know, tutor those kids, and you kind of took it from a very like selfless perspective, because many people would say like, I don't know, I'm happy doing this. Even if I'm not giving it my best shot, I'm giving something. But you were like, I'm not giving you as much as I should be. And I know how important this can be for you because of my, like, how much it changed my own life. Um, but I think that's really, I think that's quite a selfless thing to do. Like many people may think like, oh, you're just like taking time for yourself, and being selfish. But I think um, kind of what you did is in like kind of being like they deserve someone who is able to give them 100%, you know,
Mm.
and understandably so, because I mean you've you in during your university career you're juggling like what, a business, you're studying an engineering degree, which is no like it's no like easy fiat, and then you're also very involved in internships and clubs. And it sounds like very much like a juggling act, very similar to your hidden talent of of the grapes.
Of the grapes. Yeah. No, it is. It is. Yeah, and it's a difficult thing to step away from on all fronts because in essence, obviously, morally, I'm attached to the student. I want to see them succeed, and I want to be part of that so much. I don't know if that comes from an egotistical standpoint where I think sometimes of myself where it changed my life so much that I'm like, oh, I'm changing lives. I'm that person. And it's difficult to separate that. And then also from an economical point, in essence, I don't have to pay anyone if I'm tutoring. So then finances look good on my side and everything's just better when I do it myself, but it isn't better for them. And at the end of the day, that is what is most important. Um, I don't think education is something you can sacrifice on even the smallest amount. It's probably, in my opinion, one of the most important things that I could pursue, and I'm happy to do it in any form. Mm.
Oh. So I see that we're coming close to our break. Um, but what one last question before we get to our break is, while when you were like kind of juggling tutoring, clubs, internships, and university, how did you keep them all going? Like how did you balance it? Like what tips or strategies have been like your secret weapons to maintaining that balance?
Ooh, my secret weapons. Here they come. So yeah, juggling all of them. I inherently am not a person that I don't think I've ever been the best at anything. I've just been all right at it, maybe kind of good at it. So for me, failure is all right. I don't mind failing, and what that leads to is that I am more open to juggle many things at once. In essence, like, yeah, as you said in your question, juggling grapes or juggling plates or whatnot, you're going to, if you juggle 50 of them, you're going to lose about three. Three are going to fail. It's not going to work out. But that's all right. That's really okay with me. I don't mind failure. I'm good with failure. And I've always seen it personally that if I've only failed when I've given up on it. It doesn't matter till then. Till then, we're just in the process of winning. That's all that it is. So I think other than that, to be able to do all of that, like to juggle all those things, there's a couple of little bits that I do, employ. So I
Yeah.
think number one for me is people, 100%. There is not a single successful thing that I have done that hasn't really been on the shoulders of others, where it's either just supporting me or just being around me. That I really enjoy. Although I'm not a huge fan of working always with people, I tend to just thrive better on my own. Just knowing that there's someone out there and having people around you to do it with you or just to be near you when you're doing it. And then I think secondly is brute force, really just forcing it. So what I mean by brute force to get things done is um, I'm someone who, if I have one task to do, I will most likely not get it done. I need a whole bunch of things and I need to be stressed to get things done. So, how I then almost ensure that I get all these things done is through calendars and notes and whatnot. I write down, okay, this needs to get done, this needs to get done. And then almost setting alarms for myself and getting people involved allows that thing to almost, it forces it to happen. So, for example, uh, if I needed to get something done, like let's say the tutoring, the longest part, the thing that's take the longest for me in the tutoring is when I have to make ads because I make them on my own, and then they just take forever. However, the moment I've gotten a student involved, I know that, oh, the meeting is happening at this time. I have to be there at this time. So then I just get it done. In essence, I sort of structure things in a way that there are large consequences if they don't occur. That's the only way that I'll really get them done. If it's something that I just have to do passively on my own, it's not going to really happen. And also, then just, I guess, when it comes to juggling multiple things, really just removing any distraction that you have, but in essence, not just removing it, but replacing it with an emotional reason for doing it. I'm very high. I'm like I'm very big on that. If I cannot get angry or sad or excited about doing whatever I'm busy doing, then I'm not going to do it well or effectively. So that, however, it's not always the case. Sometimes you're doing something that's really boring, and it's like, okay, how do I get emotion into this? And that's mostly for me through music. I will put on songs that will make me upset or that will make me sad. Because if I am emotional while doing it, then I just put passion into whatever I'm doing right now. Or really giving myself a pep talk beforehand, hyping myself up for whatever is happening right now so that I give it 100%. It's sort of a way to pseudo induce passion regarding everything I do. So yeah, to break it down now, let's just put this all together. Um, I think being familiar with failure is important, and being passionate about what you do, whether however you want to get that done, you need to get that done. And then on top of that, just people around you and consequence. We have to induce consequence in what we are doing. There has to be a reason for it. And if there's not a reason to do it, there has to be a reason to almost not do it. There has to be something that occurs afterwards when I don't take this step, when I don't go through with it. So yeah, those I guess would be my balancing act tips.
Oh,
Mm.
some very unconventional ones in there, but it's always the unconventional ones that do the most. So yeah, we're just gonna take our break now, and we will be back. And after our break, we're gonna get into we're gonna get a little bit vulnerable, a little bit, just a wee bit, just a wee bit. So see you in a few. Okay, welcome back after our break. We um we had a few things that we had to sort out before we came back, but now we are ready to tackle these questions and also to get a little bit vulnerable and a bit raw and get a bit real. So speaking of vulnerable, if we were to take a trip back in time to meet your 18-year-old self, what advice would you share with that younger version of yourself?
Okay. So when I initially saw this question, the first thing I thought of, knowing myself at 18 and even knowing myself now, is that if I was to go back to when I was 18, I don't even think I'd make contact with they wouldn't listen to me. Like 18-year-old me was done. 22-year-old me's done. Like I promise you, they wouldn't listen. But let's say they did. Let's say they took my advice for some reason. I caught them off guard. I guess really that's a difficult one to answer because at the end of the day, I'm so happy about how things have turned out, and regardless of things that went wrong or didn't go well in my life, I'm glad they happened. Right? It's sort of the worst things that happen to you make you the best, and because of that, I think the only advice I could give is just that it doesn't matter. That is all. Because I can sit here right now and think of things that really bothered me. And I'm such a dramatic person that at the end of the day, I know even at 18, there were cases where I thought, oh, yeah, no, this is the end of the world for me, when it really wasn't. And maybe trying to alleviate that pressure because it was unnecessary. It was unnecessary for me to attempt to carry all of it with me all the time, that I need to be this and I need to do that. And in essence, that's the only advice I could give if they would listen to me. That is, then that would be it. It's just that it's okay and it doesn't matter. It's we can move on and we can continue.
I think that's the best kind of advice. Sometimes it's yeah. When I was drafting this question, I also thought what I would say to my 18-year-old self, and I think I would say something very similar along those lines, if only she would listen. So, I mean,
Yeah.
I would say that as much as I have changed, I haven't changed. And if I were me back when I was 18 and I met older me, I would we would probably just, I don't know, make jokes and never get to the important life lessons that I've learned along the way. We just probably goof around, and then I'd have to go back to like, I'd have to come back to like 2023, and I'd be like, oh, wait a minute, I actually didn't tell her any advice.
Yeah, like I actually didn't say anything. And we kind of just hung out for a while, and then I left. That was
Yeah.
it. Mm,
But yeah, I think what you said is very like, although it's very simple, it is very important to remember that like as much as as much as we'd want to change things, things ended up the way they've ended up for a reason. And like the only thing that we really can do is kind of change, kind of shape our decisions to further shape our future. Um, and yeah, just know that we're gonna be okay. And I think that's a lot of people need to hear that you're gonna be okay. Things are gonna work out. Yeah, you just need to.
yeah, you'll be all right, and it's fine, and just continue on. Because at the end of the day, it sort of reminds me, when discussing it now, I'm a huge fan of Ernest Hemingway, and he has this quote. I just now try and recall. I'm going to adapt his quote most likely now, but what it in essence was is that he says, "There's nothing noble about being superior to others. True nobility is being superior to one's former self." Right? So what I like about that quote so much is just that a lot of times I felt when people answer a question like, "Oh, if I was to go back in 18, like when I was 18, I would say this and this and this," and what those questions really revolve around is attempting to go to 18, provide them with the knowledge to give your like to give an 18-year-old me an easier run at it, to give an 18-year-old me more opportunities and more and less downfalls. But that's not the point. That doesn't build character, and that doesn't make you a better person. What makes you a better person is those tough things, and it those are the experiences that are most important. And that's why really just the true nobility lies in being superior to a former self. 8-year-old me needs to go through those struggles and needs to become better because of them. It's not going to help that I go back there and I'm like, okay, we'll just ignore all of that because it solves itself. That's not, it isn't helpful, and it doesn't make a better person.
Well said, well said. And yeah, it's quite a quote. That's very powerful. It's yeah, it's because oftentimes we like tend to kind of compare ourselves to someone else, whether we
Mm,
take kind of the inferior or the superior kind of role in that comparison, or even an equal like role. But we always tend to like it's always we humans tend to always want to like either be one of the extremes, like either be the superior or be the inferior. And oftentimes we will strive to be the equal, but it's like it varies so much, I mean, throughout life. But
mm,
it's and often yeah, it's always comparing like yourself to someone else. But it's very important to be like, this is who I am now, this is who I was, this is what I can learn from my younger version. And yeah, and this is what I can like, this is what I can learn. This is maybe some things that I've forgotten about, maybe in my younger self, that have kind of died, um
mm,
maybe good or bad. And maybe I should like, just like either reignite them or just let them die, those kind of things. And I think it's a very powerful quote that you shared. um Now, though, you did say that you did kind of emphasize on the importance of the fact that, like, obviously advising them and making your 18-year-old self kind of aware of the challenges of the present, or the challenges that they're facing, and also kind of like helping them is not going to help them in the sense of growing them. So speaking of that, what would you say, like in the present, are some pivotal lessons that you've learned so far?
okay. Okay. So some of the pivotal lessons that I have learned, other than that one, which I'll start off even with that one, and I like what you said. That analogy of comparing to others versus comparing to self. When it comes to that, comparing to others, it's futile. If you are able to compare yourself to someone else, then you've lost it. At that point, I feel you've lost the track entirely. If you are able to say, "Oh yeah, no, I'm exactly like this," or "I'm exactly like that," no, then you're nothing whatsoever. And it's a harsh thing to say, I feel sometimes, but you are unique, and you have the ability to become unique and the ability to become you. And that is only going to help, like that's only going to happen through introspection and being able to look at your former self and being able to improve upon that. And that's what adds value. Really, that is fully, it doesn't matter where you started or where you've ended. All that matters is in between, have you improved? Have you actually looked back on what you were and said, hey, I didn't like that about me, or I really like that about me, and then developed in whatever manner forward? Not to become someone that you've seen, not to become like take parts of someone else and attach that to yourself and become that. That's not important. That's not going to add value to your life. At the end of the day, all that you've become is some pseudo, weaker version of something else. What really matters is just you. And although I feel that's a little bit individualistic, and I'm not a huge fan of individualism as much. I like community-based ideas and really just, group analogies and thinking of yourself as a family or as a community more than being just a single individual. What matters, I think, most there is, sure, I can help all of those around me, but I can also help myself. And by helping myself, I can learn lessons from others, but most importantly, I can learn lessons from me. I don't think anyone should undervalue themselves to such a point where they think, oh yeah, the only information I can gather is from others. The greatest things that I have learned are just from myself, from thinking back on what I was and what I am and why I've changed and how I've changed. And then on top of that, I think the standard lessons also apply here, pivotal lessons, I guess, for me. And once again, it's a very cookie cutter, believe in yourself and support yourself fully. And those stay true. That's why I think we hear them so often. They do. And it ties in with how I said balancing it all earlier with the brute force idea of we need to force passion onto things and we need to hype things up and everything has to be really important. We have to try and make whatever we're doing fulfilling and exciting and look for the best parts in it and inflate that. And you need to do that with yourself as well. I even stated earlier, I don't think I'm the best at anything. I don't think I've ever been number one at anything ever. And I'm all right with that. I can still look back on me and say, well, you tried, you gave it your best shot, and how many are willing? And I can hype myself up in those methods and make sure that I can believe in me and I can support me alone on my own, in essence. And yeah, those are some pivotal lessons for me, as well as another one, which definitely, once again, it favors the individual, not the group, is to apology over permission. Always. We can always ask for forgiveness, but to ask for permission is a lot more of a strenuous task, in my opinion. I think many times I've seen people talk to me about ideas or things that they want to do. And obviously, that age old question comes in of why haven't you done it? And then it's always because they don't feel, in my opinion, they don't feel confident enough and they want advice on this and they want to have assurance on whatever they're doing. And once again, the only assurance that I think is necessary to give is that it doesn't matter, just do it, just go, just now, immediately. And that's how I think you should take on all your tasks, is don't think too much about it. Don't go along asking everyone for advice and everyone for semi permission to do something. Just do it and see what happens. Oh, I've turned into a Nike ad, but you just need to go for it and really see what happens. It's going to fall apart. It's going to be great. It's not going to be everything you've ever dreamed, or it is going to be more than what you dreamed. You don't know. But to sit there and to say, oh yeah, I didn't do it because X, Y, Z, or this person said it was a bad idea, or this or that, that is a waste of time. And it's a waste of an opportunity that you could have learned that yourself. And that's way more valuable than to take someone else's opinion for it, even when it's really dumb. I think back on examples where I won't name specific names, but within even the EBIT subhouse stuff, that is where I really took that to the core and made many a mistake, where it was cases of attempting, I wanted to do this, and it was a case of, well, we don't think that you can do that within the rules, and you can't really do that. And I just did it anyways. Let's just see what happens. Let's just go for it. And I made some friends through it, and I made some enemies through it as well, by just almost in essence bending the rules or trying to ignore them entirely, and then having to get called in for, hey, you're not allowed to do this, what you're doing now. And yeah, I know I'm not allowed to do it. I knew I wasn't allowed to do it, but I felt that it needed to be done, and I wanted to see what would happen. In experimentation, really. So that, I think, is really important for me, and it is a lesson that I've picked up over time. Sometimes I've felt that, especially in my younger years, that I was cautious and waited for opportunity, and waited to say something that I wanted to say, and waited for the right moment to come along. It's never going to come. I like, to not sound arrogant, it's obviously, I haven't lived all that long, but in my experience thus far, it doesn't come. You have to do it, and you have to do it now. And especially even in a high stress environment, or how I like to do things, where we're going to juggle 49 things and see which one falls and which one succeeds, because so much is happening all at once, it forces this quick thinking and quick acting nature. And I really, really love that. It's my favorite thing to do, is to just say, okay, we're doing it now. We don't have time to think. We don't have that, because at the end of the day, a discussion on whether or not I should do something is going to take up all of my time. And if you're going to begin to think of that for too long, and start to ask too many voices, like other people around you, personally, I just don't think then it will happen. There's no idea that someone has not shut down, ever. Whether it be something as cool as a light bulb, I can assure you that a bunch of people probably shut that down too. And in essence, at least they tried, at least they gave it their best attempt, and look, it worked out. And there are many ideas that I've had where I've just failed, where it's just been like, okay, I'm just going to try this, and it ended up miserably for me. But for that reason, I won't try it again. And at least I will not continue my existence thinking, well, what if I did try? Well, what if it did? I only get to live once. Might as well make as many mistakes as possible. Then, on top of that, I want to really just emphasize one thing for me as well, is introspection. As I sort of mentioned earlier with that quote, um, introspection is important, really important. You need to be able to look inwards and think about why you're doing what you're doing, even on the simplest things. It's to a point where I think if you begin to enjoy thinking about why things are happening as they have, then you're in a good space, because then you can learn from your own mistakes. If I can think about my own mistakes and form opinions on what I've done. Now, then, on top of that as well, another important lesson for me is really just, it's not the responsibility of the world to be perfect. It is, and it shouldn't, that does not mean that we shouldn't try to change the world, but an expectation is a deadly thing. To expect that things are going to be all so fantastic as what they're going to be. And although that does make us, that is part of life and does make things fun, I think that idea of, it's no one's responsibility. It isn't the world's responsibility to attempt to be perfect, and I'm just supposed to live in it and then point out where the faults are for someone else to fix. It isn't always going to work out, and it isn't always a great time. But I have done this. I have put myself in this position, and the matter of the fact is, even if it isn't good, or even if it isn't bad, at least it was my decision to make. So at the end of the day, leaving it up to someone else to fix, or advising, or taking someone else's advice at face value without thinking of it, those are not good ways to approach problems. And they're not going to leave you fulfilled with what you've done, because at the end of the day, either you haven't done it, or inherently someone else has done it and you've just been a catalyst for their decision. So yeah, those are my pivotal lessons, all 5,000 of them.
No, they were okay. I actually didn't count, even though they were quite a few.
I'm
Um,
glad. I'm glad.
but they were equal. Like all of them were quite like important reminders. I think even to our listeners as well as to myself. Like, I think one of the things that you like talked about is you said ask for forgiveness, not permission. And I think personally, I have been I used to be someone who was like that way, that I asked for forgiveness. before I asked for permission, especially in school. And then something happened in like um, COVID, and I changed to like being this more cautious person where I'm like, I need to like ask, people for permission. And I think in a sense, like there are some situations where obviously you have to, like if you're like, staying with your parents, or, if
Oh
there are
yeah,
other
no,
people
of course. Okay,
involved.
yeah, yeah.
But
Yes, no, no.
when it comes to actually like putting something in action, like this podcast, I actually procrastinated about this podcast for about 4 months before I actually did anything about it. Um, and I like that what you said is like has been so true to me, because it's like if I hadn't one day been like, okay, this is enough procrastination, you need to actually do something about it. You can't just have this vision, you can't just have this idea and not act on it. Because if you do nothing, nothing's going to happen. And I think it's very true. For many of us, like even in terms of like college students, we know that in South Africa, unemployment is a reality. It's a harsh reality.
Mm,
And it's also because of that, the market has become so competitive that everyone's just trying to get a job, everyone's just trying to live. And I mean, we could sit here, and as you said in one of your other points, you could sit here and be like, this country is blah, 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 blah. But like, what are you doing about it? Like, how are you actually like making the situation better for yourself or for anyone else? And I
mm,
think that also kind of ties in to what you did with your business, where you were like, you saw that there was a problem. You saw that they were fellow students that were having, financial struggles and not being able to sometimes have like food to eat. And you were like, wait a minute, like I could just say, oh, that's a shame. Oh, shame. But you didn't just say,
mm,
oh, shame. You were like, let me try and see if I can help them. Let me make an opportunity for them. And I think that's incredible, is that I think throughout this interview, you've not only like, you know, shared your lessons that you've learned along the way, but you've kind of showed us how you've put those lessons into action. And that's incredible. You don't often come across people who like, but teach what they preach. So
mm.
yeah.
But yeah, no, I agree with you. I agree. And the thing is also, once again, that approach that we're talking about now, obviously, I don't think, once again, it's with advice. Don't take it at face value. No one's advice should ever be taken at face value. So yeah, like as you say it, like with your parents, I can't like, oh, I feel like burning down the house today. Like, and then just do it. No, I don't, that's not a good idea. But regardless, just in general, when almost to that extent procrastinating about something, should I not, just go for it. And that's when you become accustomed to failure. It doesn't work out well. So for example, even when we started doing ToYou Tutoring and doing it together, it was a lot for me to manage. So I tried to set up like a structure of, okay, how can we interview new tutors and whatnot. And it was bad. It was really bad. I didn't know how Excel worked, so I was typing it in by hand, and then I was getting things wrong. Then I would get their numbers wrong and whatnot, instead of just having them do it on a Google form, which is what we do now. You make dumb mistakes. You really do. And also, for example, just like nonsense ideas that I had and attempts at different things that just don't pan out. They don't work out always, but that's part of the journey. That's part of the lessons that you learn along the way. So that's why asking for permission, if I was to walk around and had to ask my friends and family for, hey, is this a good idea? Is this a good idea? Is this a good idea? I can almost assure you that it would never have occurred, because at the end of the day, everyone would have turned back and said what they almost always say, especially when you're pursuing a degree. It's just like, oh yeah, but you're not going to have time, but you're not going to be able to, but you're like, it's too much. It's too much now. And I think it's fair to say, let's just see if it's too much. Let's just see how much we can handle. Let's test and see how far we can go with this, and try our best and fail along the way and come accustomed to it, and then eventually succeed. You only fail when you've given up. So yeah, I rant on now about that, but it is just like I really, yeah, it's such a big thing for me, and I think one time where it came really prevalent to me was I had a internship, which was actually a job, but I never got paid. So I'm going to call it an internship at the South African National Defence Force, right? So I had gotten in there, like weaseled my way into an army base and National Defense Force. Now, I was there, I think it was my second week there. They had me sit in on a meeting just because they want me to be part of it. And I'm part of this meeting. And what it was this company that showed up and they were like, oh, yeah, no, we as a company have this really cool software that can, control routers and switches and whatnot for all your networking needs and your, Wi-Fi routers and all those things and so on. And they can turn it on and off and they can control it and they can do all of this. And then I was sitting there in that meeting and I was thinking to myself, I've turned on a Wi-Fi router before, right? Although I had no idea what this technology was that they were talking about. I don't even think I was really listening. It was a very long and boring meeting. And then at the end of the meeting, everyone was discussing about the product, hey, should we do it? Like, is it worth, is it what? And then I don't know why it just came to me. I was like, I think I can do this. And then I sat there and I was like, no, I will do it on my own. I will, that whole company, their whole purpose, I will do that on my own, just all by myself. I can. And I lied. I sat there and I lied and I was like, yeah, no, I can do all of this. Like, this is really easy. We don't need to pay all this money for this thing. I can do it. So there I am lying that I have the capability to do this. But it was just over this thought that maybe I could. And then I worked there for 9 months. And in those 9 months, I did it. I managed to get it working, which was really an awful time, T's and 80s. And trying to get a Windows 10 laptop to communicate with that thing is near impossible. And to turn it on and off, oof, no, it was a horrendous time. But I managed to figure it out and get it done. And the software is still in use there now, and I made it, and I'm so proud of what I did and the fact that I just said, hey, I'm going to try. Like, I want to try. I want to give it an attempt. And I just took a shot at it. Without any idea, without asking anyone, without even really thinking all that much about if I could, I just did it. And it panned out pretty well. So yeah, I guess just take your chances.
That was quite an entertaining story.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. I think we should just put a disclaimer to our audience though. Do not lie. But
Yeah,
you
do not
can.
lie. Do not lie.
We are just a disclaimer, we are not encouraging lying. We are just saying all of the other good stuff that Johann has said.
Yeah, yes, yes. Don't
Um,
lie, but also just don't underestimate yourself.
kind of moving on to the future. Like what plans and goals do you have considering both your academic and entrepreneurial pursuits?
Okay, so there are some things on the way. So academic wise, I think I'm going to ditch traditional learning entirely. If I want to learn something, I'll just do it through YouTube. Then again, once again, that comes from a point of the fact that I am in a software field, that those are where my technical capabilities lie. And what was like when it comes to software, there's no better place. Like YouTube teaches everything when it comes to software. I wouldn't say it's the same for all others. So don't take that once again like too hard. Some degrees I think you do probably need to go to a university for. But yeah, I don't think there will be many more traditional academics coming my way. I don't really want to go back there. I think a lot of what I can learn on my own. Then on top of that, with ToYou Tutoring, we are doing two new projects coming up. Number one will be group workshops that I really want to put in. So they will be cheaper, which I really like. And then one tutor can teach a bunch of people. We can maybe even record it and keep it and then just give it to people. And also how-tos. So in essence, a friend of mine was telling me that there are different ways to get into certain degree programs. Like there are different routes to go to get into medicine or to veterinary science that you don't need these big marks for, and things like that. Also in the academic realm, once again, I'm not going to stray too far, but yeah, how to's, and also from my side, how to do this, how to make a little Python program that can do that, or how to whatnot. Those are on the way. And then on top of that, I have been with a friend of mine, the same person who gave me the drawing pad for the tutoring way years ago. He and I have been making an app that should be releasing in about 4 months. Uh, We have been doing a bunch of seeding rounds where we talk with investors. Those are horrendous, by the way, for anyone listening. Like if you start to go for international funding, then for some reason, like obviously time zones differ, but you're up at 3 a.m. in a meeting with a bunch of people that are now questioning you on your product. So yeah, the app is called Giggly. We are attempting to bridge the gap between live music and also, in a sense, actually just creating a platform for hiring live music at different events. So yeah, that's what's on the way for
That
me.
sounds exciting. That sounds really, really exciting.
Mm.
It sounds like oof. Okay, so we need to be on the lookout for Giggly. Is that right? Giggly.
Yes.
I love how you accompanied that with a giggle. Like that was just
Yeah,
you
yeah.
could we could record that and make that your advert. Just
Yeah, that's just my ad. So sorry, this is actually just a big ad for me.
this was just
No.
actually what's funny is in our previous podcast we were talking about Hunger Games and it ended up being an advertisement for Hunger Games. So I mean,
Ooh, I
yeah.
see.
So so this could just be an ad for Giggly. That's on its
Yeah,
way.
it seems that the people that you tend to invite on here, they have something to market, as well. Oh,
That is
choose
very
them
true.
all.
Well, you see, I, I love people like that. Always got something more going on.
Mm,
And I see that our time is coming to a close.
yes.
But for all of our curious listeners who are eager to follow your journey, how can they connect with you on your
That
adventures?
is a tough question. I have removed myself from almost all social media whatsoever. Uh, However, I guess ToYou Tutoring does have a Facebook page, and Giggly will also have marketing things. But I myself, maybe one day I will jump back into it. I just was not a fan of it when I was on any of the social media apps. So sorry, you listeners. If you do care to follow me, you'll have to find me at this point. But yeah.
Okay, okay. So you're a little bit undercover now, but they
Mm.
are places where we can find you. So that's
Yeah, where you can track me down.
we can track you down.
Maybe. And possibly one day I will make my grand return to an Instagram or whatnot.
Yeah, but yeah, that is a whole other podcast, talking about social
Mm,
media and all of its effects. We could definitely do another podcast and we can talk about that
yeah,
because that is a
definitely.
whole other like
We
kind
could
of
do
a
art.
worms.
Mm.
But just to, as we conclude our conversation, what final thoughts or words of encouragement would you like to share with our listeners?
I think for my final thoughts, I just like to really actually just reiterate once again that quote that we discussed earlier from Hemingway, which is once again just there's nothing noble in being superior to others. Nobility lies in being superior to your former self. That's really all. That and it will be okay.
Aw,
Mm.
that felt like a big hug. It feels like you're giving a hug to our listeners, and hugs are amazing. So thank you, and thank you once again for doing this podcast. I think you were one of the most like I mean, I've only done 3 interviews so far, but despite that, you were one of the most enthusiastic and the person who like followed up with me the most.